when I found out that Willow, the fiancée I had cared for over the past 19 years, was actually the long-lost daughter of the wealthiest man in City A. I wasn't thrilled at all. Instead, I packed up all our family assets and ran away overnight. Why? Because my mother had been reborn. She told me that in her previous life, Willow resented being forced to marry me. Not only did she bring her true love into our home, but the moment she regained her power and status, she destroyed our entire family. But what I didn't expect was that after she discovered I'd run away on our wedding day, she completely broke down and desperately tried to find me, refusing to believe I would ever abandon her. Chapter 1. After chasing the housekeeper's daughter for 19 years, Willow finally agreed to marry me. 1 month before the wedding, my mother came running to me, panicked and teary-eyed, and dragged me away. As soon as she pushed open the door to my study, I heard, "George, I've been reborn. Listen to me, you must stay away from Willow." Hearing my mom's outrageous comment, I thought she had come up with a new tactic to break us up. I shook my head. I didn't believe a single word of it. "Son, Willow is in love with someone else. You can't provoke her. After I died, she tortured you to death." Then my mom listed several so-called events from our past lives. For example, after Willow was forced to marry me, she was incited by her true love and began to resent me. She would pour boiling water on my face and hire thugs to ruin my manhood. And in the end, I would die a miserable death. "Mom, did you have a nightmare? Willow and I have a good relationship. She promised she'd never betray me." I thought my mother was being ridiculous. Sure, Willow could be cold and aloof, but during our time together, we got along well. She'd never do something like that to me. "Mom's not lying to you. Come with me." In the garden of the sanatorium in City A, a man sat on a wooden bench, wearing a pure white cotton linen t-shirt. His face was delicately small and pale, and his frame looked weak and sickly. In front of him knelt a woman. Her hands were being gently held by his slender, fair fingers. "See it with your own eyes. I'm not lying." My mother and I stood under a tree not far away. She only said that one sentence and kept quiet, accompanying me in silence. Then, I saw Willow throw her arms around the man in front of her, her movements light, as if she were cradling something precious. "Makoto, just wait 1 more month. I'll pretend to marry George. Once I use him to take back everything from the Liu family, I'll reveal my true identity and be with you forever." Then she kissed him passionately. Their voices were loud and clear. Leaves rustled down in the breeze, piling up on the lawn. My fingertips trembled, and my breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I felt like I couldn't stand. So she agreed to marry me, but not out of love, just using me. "Makoto, don't worry. The Liu family is in chaos right now. I still need to lay low for a while. My mother was killed by those people. I'll never forgive them." Willow looked up and kissed the man's face again. "Uncle Pablo is sheltering me and the Wang family for now. We can't afford to fall out with them just yet. George is simple-minded and not very smart. I just need to fool him for now. You're the only one I love." The man called Makoto smiled gently. "Willow, I believe you." Then they hugged each other tightly again. Chapter 2. After going home, I took a nap and ended up having nightmares all night. By the time I woke up, it was already evening. "Young master, Madam said she won't be home for a while. She told you not to feel too sad, to take care of yourself and eat well." The housekeeper, Rita, handed me a bowl of bird's nest soup. The fine porcelain bowl held a delicate serving of this expensive delicacy and was placed on the dining table. "Thank you, Rita." I had just picked up the spoon but hadn't started eating yet when some noise at the door made me turn my head. There were 2 figures at the entrance. Willow was holding the hand of that man from earlier in the day as they walked in. "Rita, please serve a bowl of bird's nest for Makoto too. He's not in good health and needs the nourishment," Willow said as she walked up to me, speaking to Rita. For a moment, the living room fell into silence. The atmosphere turned awkward. I was stunned, unable to believe what I was seeing. She actually brought him back, just like that. "This is my friend Makoto. He's going to be staying with us for a while," Willow said calmly. That wasn't a question, it was a statement. "What do you mean by this? You're just bringing a man home like that?" I stood up, my cold gaze fixed on the 2 of them. Even my breathing became difficult as I spoke. "It's not like that, Mr. Wang. I couldn't find a place to stay, so I asked Willow for help," Makoto muttered in a low, uneasy voice. Stepping back 2 paces instinctively, he hid behind Willow without even thinking. The 2 of them standing together made me look like the outsider. "Don't overthink it. Makoto is just staying here temporarily," Willow said, frowning, shielding him with her body. "He'll leave as soon as he finds another place." She turned her head slowly, her eyes now visibly filled with irritation, toward me. Her attitude showed blatant impatience, but she defended Makoto without saying much. "You bring someone home without even telling me first, and I don't even get to ask a question." With that, I stopped looking at her. My voice was cool, and my eyes full of disappointment. My mom had warned me before not to get into conflicts with Willow. Even though seeing them so close just now made my chest ache, I forced myself to stay calm and not lose it. It's not easy to let go of so many years of feelings just like that. Whatever. There's a guest room upstairs. I said it, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't care. Willow took Makoto upstairs and gently, attentively looked after him. She never used to be like this. Young master, maybe Miss Lu is just looking after a friend. Don't overthink it. She still cares about you, Rita said, trying to comfort me. She'd seen their relationship grow from childhood. Over the years, Miss Lu had treated me well, quiet maybe, but always thoughtful. But I replied, maybe. I never really knew her at all. If I still held on to hope for Willow before yesterday, now I had to reevaluate this entire relationship. As a child, Willow would hold me during thunderstorms and sleep beside me. As a teen, she would hold my hand after school and chase off the bullies who mocked me for not having a father. As adults, she stayed quietly by my side, doing everything I wanted to do together. But was that really love? Was there something else mixed in? I had no way of knowing. The next day, at lunch, everyone ate quietly. For a while, everything seemed calm. Willow, my throat feels a little sore. Makoto put down his chopsticks, his expression faintly pained. His pale face was flushed with an unnatural red. It didn't look like he was faking it. Gradually, I started to feel something was off too. Breathing became difficult, and when I tried to speak, no sound came out. Instinctively, my hand reached out toward Willow. What's wrong, Makoto? Willow immediately stood up and rushed to support Makoto, bending over to steady him by the shoulders. Her voice was soft, her movements gentle, full of concern and care. At the same time, I was finally able to speak, barely, in broken words. Willow, I feel a bit dizzy. Even my fingers were trembling. I collapsed slowly onto the dining table, my body limp and powerless. Stop it. Do you really have to copy Makoto at a time like this? What's the point of fighting over who feels worse? Willow's voice was ice cold, completely devoid of warmth. Through the haze, I could see her frowning, gently touching Makoto's forehead with worry in her eyes. She ignored my cry for help completely. Was there peanut in today's food? Makoto's allergic to peanuts. She shouted sharply at the rushing Rita, her whole body brimming with anger. Rita froze under the weight of her glare, too afraid to step forward, too afraid to leave. Willow held Makoto close, half carrying him as she hurried toward the door. Rita, take me to the hospital. I forced myself upright, using every ounce of strength I had left to get the words out. The feeling of suffocation overtook my whole body. I could no longer tell what was real and what was slipping into oblivion. Young master, what's happening to you? Rita rushed over and caught me just as I was about to collapse. Chapter 3. Peanut allergy. Luckily, he was brought in time. Otherwise, his entire respiratory tract could have been damaged. He'll need to be observed for 24 hours before being discharged, the doctor said briefly during rounds. Thankfully, Rita had the driver take me to the hospital immediately and I was rushed into the ER. Thank you, doctor. We really appreciate it. Rita wiped away a tear. Thank God the young master was okay. Otherwise, how could she ever explain this to madam? The doctor left, and silence fell over the room. A few minutes later, I finally spoke. I'm fine, Rita. Don't worry. I smiled weakly at her. My face was still pale. Lying in bed, I looked like a lifeless big dog. It was that new maid's mistake. She put crushed peanuts in the health porridge and made you suffer, Rita explained from the side of the hospital bed. The porridge had lots of traditional medicinal ingredients meant for nourishment, and the crushed peanuts weren't easy to notice. I hadn't realized and ended up drinking 2 bowls. No wonder it was that severe. Miss Lu went too far. She didn't care about your safety at all and only focused on that outsider. How could she be like that? Rita fumed. She had been present during the whole incident. It wasn't surprising that she was so angry. Listening to her standing up for me made my nose sting. My fingers instinctively clenched the bedsheet. A tidal wave of bitterness surged through me, shaking my heart. She knew I was allergic to peanuts, but when I asked for help, she only cared about Makoto, treating my words like petty drama or foolish exaggeration, as if she only had eyes for that man. That moment was so hard. That sensation of losing control of my body was terrifying. Yet Willow acted as if she didn't see me at all. She hasn't even come by to check on you. Unbelievable. Rita muttered again. Yeah, since the incident, she hadn't shown her face once. She was probably by that other man's side. That suffocating sense of despair came flooding back. I could still feel it vividly. It was like I was standing on a narrow fence, on one side, life, on the other, hell. I instinctively reached out to Willow, hoping she would still look at me like she used to, like I was her whole world. But her response was even more hopeless than the darkness itself. Rita, don't mention her anymore. My voice was hoarse, with a catch of grief beneath the surface. If I could, I'd stop myself from having even a shred of hope for Willow. I wished what my mother told me hadn't been true. But reality kept dragging me into the abyss, again and again, giving me no way to climb back up, no exit in sight. All right, I'll go home and make you some soup. Rita tucked the blanket around me and gave me a small, reassuring smile. The hospital room fell silent again. I stared up at the ceiling, the light in my eyes dimming bit by bit. After a long pause, I whispered a question into the stillness. If Makoto is so important, then what am I? No one answered. After spending a night at the hospital, I was mostly recovered the next day. I brought home the medications the doctor had prescribed. Why are you just getting back now? The moment I walked through the door, Willow appeared with a glass of water. There was a glass coffee table between us. The yellow roses on it had already wilted, their petals dry and fallen, the leaves yellowed, the flowers, like people, had been thoroughly neglected. Young master was just discharged. Make way, Rita said as she supported my arm. Willow didn't react at first, she just stood there in a daze. Then Makoto came down the stairs and casually stepped beside her. George went to the hospital too. Wow, what a coincidence. His voice rose slightly at the end, a tone of surprise and curiosity. Very subtle, very telling. Makoto has a severe peanut allergy. In that moment, I was just thinking about saving a life, Willow offered casually as an explanation. Even though the incident had passed, she felt she had already handled it appropriately. If it had been someone else, she wouldn't have even bothered to say this much. I'm allergic to peanuts too. You must have forgotten, I said flatly, my tone indifferent. Saving a life. So Makoto's life counts, and mine doesn't. Is my life worthless? That logic made no sense. There's no such principle in this world. Willow paused when she heard that. Her long lashes trembled slightly, and after a moment of thought, her entire body suddenly stiffened. She had actually forgotten. George, Willow realized what had happened and was just about to apologize when a crisp voice cut her off. Oh, so George is allergic to peanuts too? Then why would peanuts still be served in this house? Makoto asked innocently, as if just making an observation. But his tone carried another implication, that this was all something I had staged, a self-directed, self-acted drama. He said it with intention, and she heard it with just as much readiness to believe. The flicker of guilt that had just begun to rise in Willow's heart was instantly snuffed out. Right, this was the Wong family. How could peanuts possibly appear on the dinner table when the young master was known to be allergic? George, this is outrageous. You went southwest far just to drive Makoto away, to pull a stunt that hurts yourself and others. Chapter 4. The way she accused me was too blatant, like I'd been thrown onto the stand in a courtroom, with nowhere to hide. But I wasn't wrong. If there was a mistake, it was that I shouldn't have held on to even the smallest shred of hope for her. Hope that she would save me. Think whatever you want. With that, I walked past her and went back to my room. I was exhausted. I didn't have the strength to keep arguing about things I hadn't done. Reality would eventually pull me out of all this deception and pain. The abyss wasn't impossible to cross, it just depended on how much determination I had. If I had the chance to start over, I'd give everything I had to break free of these shackles and climb up again. I believed in myself. Sitting at the desk in my room, I spotted a familiar dark brown sandalwood box. Inside was a brooch shaped like a green leaf, delicate and ornate as ever. It had been a gift from Willow for my 18th birthday, my coming-of-age present. The leaf design was intricate. I had really loved it, so much so that all these years, I couldn't even bring myself to wear it. I picked it up, staring at the brooch in silence, eyes lowered. After a few days of rest at home, my body had fully recovered. I want to bring Makoto to tonight's banquet. He wants to experience something more refined, Willow said as she set down her teacup. The steam from the tea blurred her features, making her hard to read. I nodded. I didn't care anymore. Besides, I was about to leave City A with my mom soon. The banquet hall was tastefully luxurious, the champagne tower sparkling under the lights. That brooch you're wearing, it's from Willow, she said. Auspicious clouds suited me best. She personally designed the pattern and the shape, and even inlaid every diamond one by one herself. It was clear a lot of thought had gone into it. An auspicious clouds brooch. She actually put in that much effort to custom design such a gorgeous piece for Makoto, with a heavenly motif and hand-set diamonds. And for my coming-of-age gift, she'd given me a green leaf brooch she probably grabbed off some store shelf, and I had treasured it like it was something sacred all these years. What a joke. I couldn't stand to look at that brooch on Makoto any longer. I staggered out to the balcony to get some air, hoping the wind could blow away the bitterness and resentment in my heart. Everything's ready. Now we just wait for you to go back to the Liu family and reclaim the company and your shares. Came a low male voice from the corner of the side terrace. The volume was low, but every word was crystal clear. Thank you, Uncle. Willow's voice, unmistakable. When the time comes, I'll take Makoto with me. He won't have to suffer anymore. My steps halted. She was taking Makoto back to her family. Before I could even react, I heard, what about that young master from the Wong family? He has nothing to do with me. The conversation stopped there. I stumbled out of the terrace, my chest tight and my breathing strained. By the time I reached the second-floor stairwell, my whole body was off balance. My eyes stared blankly ahead, like my mind was still stuck on what I had just heard. But before I could even recover, a piercing scream snapped me out of it. Something about that voice stirred a deep unease inside me. Makoto's body crashed heavily onto the staircase. He tumbled down several steps before finally stopping. His forehead hit the wooden railing. Blood began to trickle from his right temple. George. Makoto suddenly turned back to look at me, giving me a faint smile. But in his eyes, there was a flash of something cold and calculating. Too quick to catch unless you were looking for it. He curled up on the floor, hair disheveled, his pale face contorted in pain, lips pressed into a stubborn line. I finally snapped out of it, pupils dilating slightly. This goddamn cliché again. And strangely enough, I couldn't help but think, why did I say again? I could feel the countless stares around me, curious, judging. The whispers never stopped. What are you doing? I took 2 steps back, realizing what Makoto was trying to pull. Makoto. Sure enough, that familiar voice came from behind. Willow's tone was laced with panic like I'd never heard before. She practically rushed over, kneeling beside Makoto and helping him up. Her trembling fingers gently touched his ghostly pale face. Makoto, what happened? Makoto leaned weakly into her arms, gasping for breath, but his gaze reached past her shoulder, staring directly at me. Willow. I am fine. His voice was faint, but he paused deliberately before adding. It was my own carelessness. It had nothing to do with George. Willow's head snapped up, her eyes turning icy cold. The trick was old, but it worked. He'd barely set the bait, and the fish had already taken the hook. Chapter 5. I remained frozen where I stood. My fingertips were cold, and my throat felt like it was blocked by something. No words would come out. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. His fall had nothing to do with me. I just happened to be passing by. The words came from my throat, clear and cool, carrying a strange power that silenced the room. And I have no feud with Makoto. Why would I push him? And even if I wanted to hurt him, why would I do it in front of so many people? I don't think my IQ is that low, nor am I dumb enough to hand others a weapon to use against me. The incidents before had taught me a lesson. Staying silent in critical moments would only get me falsely accused. If I didn't do it, I had every right to speak up and make that clear. Makoto said nothing. His shoulders trembled faintly. Willow gently patted his back. There was no one else here but you and Makoto. Are you saying he threw himself down the stairs just to frame you? So this is what favoritism looks like, so unreasonable it borders on delusion. I stared at her, stunned. Suddenly, even defending myself felt pointless. Whether she believed me or not didn't matter anymore, because as long as Makoto was involved, she would stand by him, unconditionally. Where's the proof? If you're accusing me of pushing him, then show me evidence. Otherwise, this is defamation. My voice dropped, my expression turning cold. Willow held Makoto tightly, glancing back at me with a complicated look in her eyes. The stairwell lighting was dim, casting long shadows of the three of us, entangled, yet distinctly separate. You'd better pray Makoto is fine. Otherwise, she didn't finish the sentence, but the chill in her voice said enough. Willow walked away with Makoto, leaving me alone, still standing there, absurd and laughable. 3 days later, that afternoon, the Wong family's driver, Sam, showed up unexpectedly with a message. Young master, Madam asks that you come to the company. She said it's urgent. I frowned. My mother had been busy transferring assets lately and rarely contacted me directly, especially not just to ask me to show up at the company. But Sam had worked for our family for over 10 years and had never once slipped up. So I didn't overthink it and got in the car. The car drove steadily, but the scenery outside grew more and more unfamiliar. Skyscrapers gave way to rundown, low-rise buildings. Eventually, the car pulled into a dirty, narrow alleyway. A sense of unease surged in my chest. I turned sharply toward the driver. Sam, this isn't the way to the company. Sam didn't answer. He simply hit the brakes and parked at the mouth of the alley. I'm sorry, young master, he said quietly, then quickly got out and walked away. It hit me all at once. My heart sank. The area was dim, shadowed. I had been left behind. The moment I stepped out of the car, a burst of laughter echoed behind me. Mr. Wong, we've been waiting for you a long time. I stiffened all over and slowly turned around. 3 men were blocking the alleyway. The one in front was chewing on a cigarette, eyes roaming over me like he was deciding where to strike first. The other 2 flanked me on either side, driving me deeper into the alley. What do you want? I shouted, but my voice was tight, strained. What do we want? The men chuckled darkly. We want something from Mr. Wong, of course. As he said this, his eyes dropped, stopping just below my stomach. I turned and bolted for the alley entrance, but one of them grabbed my shoulder. He was strong. I couldn't break free. Let me go. I struggled with all my strength and lashed out, kicking hard at his knee. He cursed and let go for a moment, then punched me straight in the face. Smack. Searing pain exploded across my cheek. My vision went black for a second as I staggered into the wall. Before I could steady myself, a hand yanked my arm violently. I was dragged to the ground, still trying to run. One of them raised a metal pipe and swung it toward my lower body. Once you're crippled, let's see how you show your face in front of any woman again. Terror and despair surged through every nerve in my body. I clenched my teeth, dug my nails into my palms. Over and over, I told myself, stay calm, don't panic, don't lose control. My mom had taught me, the more desperate the situation, the calmer you have to be. Tisk still got the nerve to glare at us. Another man crouched beside me, fingers tracing down from my neck with heavy, disgusting breaths. You're gonna regret it real soon. Their disgusting laughter rang in my ears. One of their hands reached toward my belt. I shut my eyes. In my mind, I started a silent countdown. 5, 4, 3. The sound of sirens pierced the air. Chapter 6. The bright lights of the police station were almost blinding, but to me, they felt like the safest thing in the world. I couldn't stop my fingers from trembling slightly. Mr. Wong, could you please describe what happened again? The female officer's voice was gentle, and she even handed me a cup of warm water. Anyone would be scared after something like that. I was just about to speak, when the door to the interrogation room suddenly burst open. George. Willow rushed in, her coat wrinkled and hanging off her shoulders. That usual composed, aloof look of hers was completely gone. She looked frantic. She practically threw herself in front of me, grabbing my ice-cold fingers with both hands. Where are you hurt? Did those bastards hit you? Her expression didn't seem fake. Willow was truly panicked and worried. In her eyes, I saw the long-lost mix of fear and tenderness that I hadn't seen in so long. For a moment, I thought I'd gone back to childhood. Back then, when I was bullied by other kids, she used to get just as anxious. She would hug me tightly, and later she'd get revenge on my behalf. I'll be with you for the rest of your life. Don't be afraid. That sentence had carved itself deep into my memory. I came back to my senses and slowly, clearly told the police everything that had happened. Willow's palm was hot against mine, squeezing hard, almost painfully so. Maybe what I said was too much for her to hear, but I felt disconnected. I looked up, dazed. I'm fine. I gently pulled my hand away, voice a little hoarse. Rita called the police in time. Willow's hand froze in midair. She stared for a moment, then turned sharply toward the officer. Where are those scumbags? I want them rotting in prison. Ma'am, please calm down. All suspects are already in custody. The senior officer adjusted his glasses and chose his words carefully. But there's something strange. According to the ringleader, the person who hired them was a man named Mr. Ito. He flipped open his notes and showed Willow a page. The air froze. Willow slowly responded. There must be some mistake. Please double-check so you don't wrongly accuse anyone. Of all the people we knew, there was only one with the surname Ito, Makoto. Just moments ago, she had been furious on my behalf, but at the mention of Mr. Ito, her resolve faltered. We've recovered the deleted messages from their phones. The officer continued. Our tech team confirmed the communication. It was a done deal. The evidence was irrefutable. George. Makoto, he probably didn't mean to. The rage on her face had already melted away, replaced by hesitation and a forced calm. Even her voice had lost its edge. I closed my eyes, lips curling into a bitter, self-mocking smile. Evidence? Truth? In Willow's eyes, none of that mattered. If it was Makoto, then someone else must be to blame. Her bias blinded her to everything. We'll compile all the evidence. Mr. Wong, you have the right to file a criminal case, as well as a civil lawsuit. The officer closed the file and stepped into the inner office. Willow moved closer again, reaching for my arm. George, don't be afraid. I'll have Lou Group's legal team. I would not let this go easily. If I hadn't stayed alert and had Rita call the police in time, I might not be standing here. Just because I wasn't crippled doesn't mean the person who tried to ruin me should walk away unpunished. I'll handle it myself. I'm not letting Makoto off. I sidestepped her touch, letting the blanket fall to the floor. Even if my mother was in Hong Kong right now, I would go to court on my own. I won't forgive him. I locked eyes with Willow, firm, unwavering. Chapter 7. Willow's hand grasped at empty air. She seemed to realize something in that moment, but couldn't quite name it. She just had this vague sense that George wasn't the same anymore. It must be her nerves, she told herself. George liked her so much, he'd be fine in a few days. Let's go home. You need to rest. In the days that followed, the weather remained gloomy and overcast. Rain clung to the sky, and the sun never showed its face. I stood by the window, sipping coffee. Sir, something's wrong. Buddy's not breathing. Rita came running in from the garden, clearly alarmed. Buddy was a parrot I'd raised, a pet I bought last year with Willow at the flower and bird market. What? I rushed outside to the garden. Looking at the lifeless Buddy in the cage, I couldn't believe it. My eyes turned red in an instant. Just a few days ago, Buddy had been full of energy. Now, suddenly, he was gone. What the hell had happened? Rita followed behind me, heart aching at the sight. A few days ago, Mr. Makoto took Buddy outside into the garden. After he brought him back, Buddy started acting sluggish. I gently lifted Buddy from the cage. Rita's words echoed in my ears. Makoto, again. Every bad thing always led back to him. Footsteps came from behind. Willow stood in the doorway. What's going on, George? I didn't answer. I just stared at the lifeless little creature in the cage. I had no room in my chest for conversation. But Rita raised her voice and told her exactly what she'd seen, her tone accusatory, all signs pointing straight at Makoto. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Willow stepped closer, her voice calm, almost indifferent. I'll buy you another one tomorrow. I looked up sharply, my bloodshot eyes filled with cold ridicule. Buy another one. This was a living creature. The hatred in my gaze startled Willow. For once, she was at a loss for words. What do you think this is? A toy you can just replace if it breaks? My voice trembled. My face was full of bitter disappointment. Get Makoto, the curse, out of my house. Out. He tried to have me crippled, and now he's killed my parrot. There's no room in the Wong family for that walking disaster. Get him out. My voice rose. I could no longer control my emotions. I was shouting, completely unraveling. If you still want to defend him, then you get out too. I carefully returned Buddy to his cage, picked it up, and walked outside without looking back. After burying Buddy, I sank into a deep depression. I locked myself in the house for days. After that fight, Willow moved out with Makoto. Good. Now the house was finally quiet. I glanced at the calendar, only 3 days left before I left City A. Just then, a phone call shattered the stillness. The scent of disinfectant was overwhelming at the hospital. I frowned as I walked deeper inside. Standing at the entrance to the ICU, I gripped my phone. The screen still showed the call log from half an hour ago. It was a strange number. The hospital had called. Miss Liu had a severe rejection response after donating bone marrow. Her condition is critical. It had only been a few sentences, but to say I felt nothing would have been a lie. After all, we'd shared so many years. Willow. I pushed the door open, but the name caught in my throat. Willow was half reclined in the hospital bed, face pale as paper, and 4 needles stuck in the back of her hand. But her eyes were soft, warm, fixed lovingly on someone beside the bed. Through the small opening in the door, I could see everything clearly. Makoto was holding her hand to his cheek. In his hospital gown, he looked like a tree on the verge of collapse. They gazed into each other's eyes, filled with tenderness. It was worth it. I'd do anything for you, Willow said weakly, but with unwavering resolve. Her fingers gently wiped away Makoto's tears. Even if it drains me completely, even if it means giving up all my bone marrow, as long as it saves you, I'm willing. They looked just like a pair of tragic lovers, destined to suffer together. I stood stiffly at the door, unable to walk in, unable to turn back, and I couldn't help wondering, then what am I? That's so touching. His girlfriend donated bone marrow for him. She just had surgery and still insisted on staying by his side, guarding his bed for 3 whole days. So devoted. The nurses whispered nearby. Their words, blown by the wind, floated into my ears. How ironic. My fiancée was willing to give up her life for another man. Chapter 8. I stood there in a daze. Last year, when I had a high fever that wouldn't break, Willow simply said over the phone, "Take some meds. You'll be fine. I'm busy right now." Last month, I twisted my ankle, cold sweat pouring from the pain, and asked her to get me some medicine. She brushed it off. So it turns out, she wasn't cold by nature. She just never saved her warmth for me. Don't worry, I'm fine. Willow was still comforting Makoto. Even from this distance, I could see the affection in her eyes, so thick, it was almost overwhelming. My fingernails dug deep into my palms. I'd seen Willow's fear of pain before. Even a tiny paper cut would make her frown for half the day. But now, she could endure the agony of a bone marrow extraction for Makoto. She could drag her post-op body through sleepless nights by his bedside. She could even risk her life for him. I couldn't breathe. The ache in my chest spread like wildfire. A pain so sharp it cut through me entirely. I felt like I was drowning in sorrow, like I was vanishing under waves of grief. Why? What did I do wrong? If she didn't love me, why promise me a lifetime of loyalty? Why vow never to betray me? I couldn't stop my feet from retreating. I instinctively stepped back. The noise at the door caught their attention. "You, what are you doing here?" Willow looked up and spotted me. What a joke. Her voice, always soft and gentle with Makoto, was forever laced with impatience when it came to me. Sunlight filtered in through the curtains, casting soft shadows across her hospital gown. Those fading beams flickered over her like the fragile illusions I'd held onto all these years. And just like that, they disappeared completely. Just came to see you. I'm glad you're okay, I said quietly, turning with a blank face. That brooch she casually gave me could never compare to the cloud-shaped one she gave Makoto. Just like all the love I poured out, could never compete with one of Makoto's tears. A breeze swept through the hospital corridor, scattering the last threads of my attachment. Back at home, I walked into my bedroom. I opened the drawer at my desk and took out the plane ticket. The so-called wedding would never happen, and I would never marry Willow. An hour ago, I had received an email from my lawyer. Mr. Wong, your case has been formally filed. We will do everything in our power to ensure justice is served. Since the day I left the police station, I hadn't said much, but I had never once stopped fighting to protect myself with the law. Thank you. I appreciate your efforts, I replied simply. The next morning, I left with my suitcase and said goodbye to Rita. Once everything was settled in Hong Kong, my mother and I would bring Rita and the others over too. The airport wasn't too crowded. I handed my boarding pass to security with a calm expression. My suitcase only held a few sets of my usual clothes. Sir, your passport please. I was boarding the plane. Outside the glass terminal, a silver aircraft sat quietly on the runway. Suddenly, I remembered the first time I taught our parrot to talk. Willow had hugged me from behind and laughed. If you ever flew away like that bird, I'd buy every airline in the world to get you back. Now I really was flying away, and she was still trapped in her own lies. Someone here was waking up and leaving, while someone else was still playing games. Willow, do you think George is angry with me? Makoto walked with her in the hospital garden. She didn't answer. Her thumb absent-mindedly rubbed across the phone screen. The chat was still frozen on the message she sent 3 days ago. Let's postpone the wedding. I'm not feeling well. No reply. He can't bear to leave, she murmured, eyes lowered, as if trying to convince herself. Ever since we were kids, he's always barked louder than he bites. But she didn't know, this time, it was different. At the airport, the intercom chimed. The female voice rang clear and smooth. Hong Kong Airlines Flight KX3098 has taken off on schedule. At 30,000 feet above the ground, I lifted the window shade. Beneath my feet, clouds churned like waves, and I was heading toward a brand new life. Chapter 9. They had been staying in the hospital for over half a month. Willow hadn't received a single reply to her messages, no word from George at all. As the day of discharge approached, she became increasingly uneasy. Willow, do you think George is still mad at me? Makoto stared directly at her, handing her 2 pills in the meantime. If he were George, he would have caused a scene long ago. George had remained silent for so long. What a loser. He's definitely waiting for me to surrender first. Don't worry about it, Willow said as she took the pills and swallowed them with water, starting to convince herself it was probably just a momentary emotional knot. Once she coaxed him a little, everything would go back to normal. Hadn't it always been this way over the years? I don't want to be the reason your relationship with George falls apart. Makoto's voice was still as clear and gentle as it used to be, but for some reason, his words no longer stirred anything in her heart. She didn't understand why. Hearing Makoto repeatedly bring up George, Willow subconsciously frowned, but when she saw the pale look on his face, her expression softened. Forget it. Makoto wasn't fully recovered yet. Maybe he didn't mean anything by it. You're still not well yourself. Stop moving around so much. The atmosphere grew a little awkward. Makoto held her hand, his fingertips grazing her skin almost imperceptibly. I'm just thinking of you. The doctor said you'll be discharged in a couple of days. Their bodies had mostly recovered by now. Just then, her phone buzzed. Her uncle's name appeared on the screen. Willow, it's time. The Lu Group will hold a board meeting tomorrow. This is our chance, he added. You must get back the shares in that woman's hands. There was only one person he could mean by that woman, her so-called stepmother, Sandra. At the mention of that name, a wave of hatred surged within Willow. All right, time to close the net. She gripped her phone tightly. She should have been happy. Hadn't these 18 years of endurance all been for this moment? Yet what churned in her chest wasn't joy, but a restless anxiety. Do we need to inform the Wongs? Her uncle Martin reminded her. It wasn't a good idea to hide something this big from the Wong family. Willow stayed silent for a moment, then gave a firm no. It wasn't the right time yet. She would tell George after everything was settled. Willow, we finally waited long enough for this day. Makoto was visibly excited. Looking at his face, Willow suddenly thought of George. George would never say something like that. He would quietly bring her a warm cup of honey water while she burned the midnight oil with documents. He would drag her to the balcony when she was exhausted, telling her softly it was time to rest. Even during her darkest days, George had insisted on jogging with her at dawn, soothing her with, "See, a new day always gets better." Those calm, warm words used to heal her little by little, but now, All she had was Makoto's hollow encouragement and the stifling smell of disinfectant in the room. "Yeah, it's almost time," she replied flatly. She glanced at her phone screen, still no messages from George. The next afternoon, Willow was dressed in a plain, elegant long dress and headed out looking impeccable. A black sedan pulled up in front of Lu Group's headquarters. Her uncle had already been waiting for some time. Chapter 10. Willow stepped out of the car, carrying a heavy folder thick with documents. Inside were all the pieces of evidence they had secretly collected over the years. Most of it consisted of records of Sandra embezzling company funds and falsifying financial statements behind the scenes. Of course, she hadn't yet brought out the dirt on her father, Lu Huainian. Priorities. She would deal with her so-called father later. Everything ready? Martin lowered his voice. She nodded, her gaze sweeping over the top floor, where the CEO's office stood. "Let's go." After the board meeting was interrupted, everything changed. 3 hours later, Sandra signed the stock transfer agreement. Her face drained of color. The empire she had so carefully built crumbled under the weight of irrefutable evidence. Victory or defeat, nothing more than that. "You think you've won?" Sandra suddenly let out a shrill laugh. Under the watchful gaze of the board members, she backed away step by step, somewhere between sobbing and laughing, pointing at Willow with venom. "So what if you took me down? Your dead mother is never coming back." Her screams filled the office. Willow's hand paused as she adjusted her cuff. Her eyes darkened completely. "You're the real loser. Ha ha ha. No one in this world loves you." Sandra sneered, her contempt written all over her face. It was blatant provocation. Willow told herself again and again, this was just Sandra's helpless rage. It didn't matter. How could no one love her? At the very least, Makoto was by her side, and George had truly loved her. He had even been willing to defy his mother just to marry her. She was loved. Over the next few days, news about the corporate earthquake was everywhere. In less than a week, Willow not only reclaimed control of Lu Group, but also unearthed the truth behind her mother's so-called accidental death years ago. Everyone in the media called her a brilliant and ruthless young leader, but no one knew. In the middle of the night, she repeatedly checked the wedding date. She wanted to find the luckiest, most auspicious day, because that day was supposed to be the happiest moment of her life, with George. "Willow, how could George not come help you at a time like this?" Makoto walked into the study with a tray of ginseng tea, mumbling his frustration. They had both been extremely busy lately. Willow suddenly looked up at him. That one look made Makoto's fingers tremble. He dared not take another step forward. He had never seen Willow look at anyone like that. Her eyes were icy, like a judge staring down a criminal. "George doesn't like people touching his books," she said flatly, taking the one Makoto had just picked up. George's signature was still on the inside cover. He used to come to this apartment occasionally and help her tidy up. That's why a few of his books were still here. Makoto forced a smile and tried to change the subject. "Do you want to redesign the wedding invitations?" "I could." He meant to offer some suggestions, but Willow interrupted him coldly. "No need. Just focus on your recovery." She closed the folder with a soft thud. The fountain pen spun gracefully in her fingers, a gesture she had learned from George, who once told her it helped him think. The study went eerily silent. Makoto didn't respond. His eyes wandered toward the trinkets on Willow's bookshelf, a ceramic parrot paperweight, a glass leaf bookmark, and a pair of wedding rings. All things George liked. By evening, Willow stood outside the Wang family villa. She knocked for a long time, but no one answered. Finally, the butler spoke through the door. "Young master is not home. It's best if you don't come again." "Not home? Did he go somewhere to clear his head?" Chapter 11. The butler said no more, just that one sentence. Then silence. Willow didn't linger. After driving back home, she sent George 2 more messages. "George, the wedding has been rescheduled to the 15th of this month. Come back once you've had your break. I'll handle everything. You just have to show up on time. I'm sure you'll love the wedding I've prepared." After sending them, she set her phone down. Willow had been so busy lately, taking care of every detail herself, that she hadn't even checked whether George had replied. She thought, this wedding is George's dream. He must be secretly looking forward to it. On the day of the wedding, the weather was perfect. Willow stood at the end of the red carpet and glanced down at her wrist. She had purposely worn the pearl bracelet that morning, the birthday gift George had given her last year. She wanted to marry him in the best state possible. "Miss Lu, the ceremony is starting," the MC whispered gently. Willow looked at her watch. The hands had already swept past 3 p.m. She smiled lightly. "Let's begin." The moment had finally arrived. Though she had once reluctantly agreed to this marriage, with time, she had learned to accept and even look forward to it. In those moments before sleep, she, too, had longed for a home. Just last night, she had dreamt of her mother reminding her to live a good life. Willow thought, once I marry George, I'll have a home. From the early days when she resisted everything about the Wang family, to settling down, studying, growing, She had always been receiving George's love and living freely under the roof of the Wangs. All of that was thanks to George Wang. And now, let us welcome the groom, the MC announced into the microphone. The guests turned their eyes toward the tightly shut entrance. That was where the groom was supposed to walk in. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3. Half a minute passed, still nothing. Even the MC looked puzzled and called again. And now, let us welcome the groom. Again. A long pause. No one appeared. The pianist resumed playing Mariage d'Amour. The soft music filled the awkward silence. The MC made a third attempt to summon the groom. Still, no one came. What's going on? Don't tell me. The groom ran away. Whispers crept through the rows of guests. Willow stood frozen, utterly in disbelief. What was happening? Her head started to throb. The joy that had lit up her face vanished in an instant, replaced by panic and confusion as she stared at the closed door. George ran away. Suddenly, Willow strode toward the side door of the hall and pushed it open hard. The hallway was completely empty. No bestman, no flower boys, and no sign of George. George. Her voice echoed down the corridor. The sounds from the wedding hall faded into the distance. Willow looked around the empty hallway. Her heart kept sinking, again and again. The feeling of shattered hope turned into 1,000 tiny needles, stabbing deeper with every breath, until she could hardly breathe. George had run away from the wedding. That realization shattered all the tenderness and hope she had held on to. He didn't want her anymore. He didn't want to marry her. The very thought made her chest ache uncontrollably. Her fingers trembled. The piano music came to an abrupt halt. Willow tore off her veil, petals scattering from her fingertips. George, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Chapter 12. Willow muttered under her breath. Her feet suddenly weighed down as if made of lead. She didn't dare turn around, nor did she want to simply walk away. Even now, she clung to a sliver of hope that maybe George was just playing some elaborate joke. But, Willow, George is being outrageous. How could he run away from the wedding? Are those random women out there really that irresistible? Makoto walked up, complaining as he went. He sounded indignant on her behalf, as if George were just another cheating jerk who ditched a good woman like Willow and smeared her name for the sake of some ridiculous drama. Makoto launched into a passionate rant, words full of condemnation. You gave him everything, and he still betrayed you. A decent man wouldn't run from his own wedding. He must have been having second thoughts for a while now. Willow, you gave him your heart. He wasn't worth it. The more Willow listened to him degrade George, the darker her expression grew. Shut up. She couldn't take it anymore and cut Makoto off mid-sentence. Turning sharply, she locked eyes with him. There was no warmth in her gaze. Something must have happened to George. He would never run away from the wedding. She gripped her bridal bouquet tightly and turned back toward the hall. Hong Kong's rainy season arrived long and lingering, soft and unhurried. I stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of a mid-levels apartment, watching the mist roll over Victoria Harbor. Young master, your ginger tea. Rita placed a white porcelain cup onto the teakwood coffee table. A few goji berries floated in the steam. Madam said you should wear the light blue suit for the Chan family's banquet tonight. Rita had just started working here, and she was already fussing around, as if afraid I might starve or lose weight. All right, you don't need to keep busy, Rita. My tone was light and calm as I offered her a relaxed smile. Drink the tea while it's hot, or you'll catch a cold. I took the cup, sipped it gently. The warmth slid down my throat and into my body, spreading slowly. When I first arrived here, I used to complain constantly about how damp the climate was. The weather here was so different from a city. Rain in a city came fast and left just as quickly, but Hong Kong's rain lingered, gentle and soft. Thankfully, I'd gotten used to it now. In the ballroom of the Peninsula Hotel, a charity auction was underway. This is my son, George, my mother introduced me proudly. He's just helped me secure a major property deal in Causeway Bay. It sounded casual, but was clearly a boast about having such a capable son. Several debutantes from prestigious families lit up with interest. Hong Kong's elite had long heard that the Wang family's only son was both talented and attractive. Now seeing him in a tailored suit, hair perfectly styled, and a small mole at the corner of his eye accenting his smile, he looked like a gentleman stepping straight out of an ink painting. Mr. Wang, are you knowledgeable about jade? A cheerful female voice chimed from nearby. I turned and saw a woman in a deep indigo dress standing beside the glass display case. She held an auction catalog in her hands. At first glance, she looked like a beautiful butterfly. It was the first time I'd met someone with such pure and graceful presence. I gave a slight smile. I know a little, just the basics. As I spoke, I moved closer to another display case and pointed inside. This jadeite bangle here, clear green and fine texture, it's worth quite a lot. I briefly explained the structure, water content, and craftsmanship. When it came to topics I liked, confidence came naturally. The woman smiled, the corners of her eyes forming charming crescents. Mr. Wang, you're too modest. You're clearly an expert. There was admiration in her expression. She took out a business card and handed it to me. There was only one name on it. My name is Anna. Just a jewelry trader with too much time on her hands. Chapter 13. A few days after I met Anna, we became friends. When we had time, we'd talk about jewelry, the weather, movies. We talked about everything. At first, I stayed guarded, always trying to read between the lines of people's kindness, trying to figure out what they really wanted. Son, open your heart. Don't be afraid. Mom's always here to catch you if you fall. My mother had noticed my unease. Her words were gentle, encouraging. Being hurt once didn't mean I couldn't start over. All right, I won't let the past affect me anymore. I pressed my lips together, determination burning in my eyes. This time, you've made a different choice. I won't let anyone hurt you again. She took my hand in hers. In that moment, our fingers intertwined, warmth and strength passed between us. We both believed we could make the days ahead better. The next evening, I met Anna at the beach. Sit here. The sea breeze is really nice tonight. Anna waved me over with a smile. I sat beside her, letting the wind brush against my face, and closed my eyes slightly. Then I heard her softly humming a lullaby in Cantonese. The gentle, flowing tune easily drew people in. I began to hum along. Our voices floated together into the night air. All the leftover fragments buried deep in my heart slowly dissolved, turned into mist and faded away. After resting, we walked toward the shoreline. On the sands of Repulse Bay, the tide had receded, leaving behind scattered seashells and fragments. I walked barefoot across the damp sand. Anna crouched beside the rocks, staring at something. Look over there. Doesn't it look like a crescent moon with a missing corner? She suddenly pointed to a rock not far away. I followed her finger, then turned back. The wind lifted the strands of hair across her forehead, revealing soft eyes full of laughter. It really does, I said, then laughed a little myself. This one looks like your eyes. She opened her palm, revealing a small amber-colored stone. The longer it stays buried in the seabed, the clearer it becomes. The waves lapped against our ankles, still carrying the ocean's warmth. George. It was the first time Anna said my name like that, her voice softer than the sound of the waves. I've seen a lot of gemstones and jade, but none of them are as beautiful as your eyes. When she said it, she looked right at me. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't flattery. Just pure admiration, sincerity. She was speaking from her heart, genuinely. I saw her hesitate, then start to say something. She seemed to have a lot on her mind, but struggled to get the words out. Finally, she took a deep breath. I know the past in a city still haunts you, but the tides in Hong Kong are new every day. After all that, that's what she blurted out, vague, but clearly meaningful. Seeing someone so usually composed and graceful suddenly get all awkward made me want to laugh, but I held it back. My face was already flushed red. What are you trying to say? Exactly. I couldn't help asking. She was being so weirdly hesitant. She paused, then finally said it. This is Hong Kong. You could try taking a new step, like, maybe, date someone. The moment those words came out, the air around us grew still. I like you. George, would you be my boyfriend? It was the first time she'd ever confessed her feelings like this. Her palms were sweating. Before she even finished, I gently kissed her on the side of her face. Our breaths tangled together. She could even smell the faint sweetness on my collar, just making it official. I blinked at her with a mischievous grin. The tide suddenly surged forward, wetting the hem of Anna's dress. She grabbed my hand tighter, as if afraid I'd be swept away by the waves. The setting sun stretched our shadows long, merging with the waves crashing gently onto the shore. Chapter 14. Back in a city. It was a completely different scene. Willow stood outside the Wong family's villa. The gate was still tightly shut. No signs of anyone having returned. The Wongs moved out a week ago, a neighbor said kindly, noticing Willow standing there, motionless. They're selling the house. Willow's heart trembled. Do you know where they went? Her voice was slightly choked. Just heard they went to Hong Kong. I don't know the exact address. With that, the neighbor turned and left. Hong Kong. They'd gotten so far away, left without a word, quietly, disappeared without even saying goodbye. George, how cruel can you be? She wanted to book a ticket to Hong Kong right then, but work held her back. In the top floor office of Lu Group's headquarters, papers were scattered everywhere. Willow stared blankly at the Hong Kong Airlines flight schedule on her computer screen. Her mind couldn't process it. George left a month ago. And it wasn't just a trip. He had moved, settled in Hong Kong. Miss Lu, Director Zheng is waiting for you in the conference room. Her secretary's voice came faintly from outside. There was no response, only the sound of glass shattering inside the office. Willow rubbed her brow and caught sight of the photo frame on the corner of her desk, a picture of her and George. Her mind blanked for a moment. She reached for it, but just then her phone buzzed. An email from the private investigator. Since she couldn't get the truth from others, she'd dig it out herself. She opened the email, and there it was. Everything. Screenshots from a nightclub alleyway showing Makoto stuffing cash into the hands of a few local thugs. Testimony from Wong family driver Sam, and the route he drove that day. Statements from the gang members, all documented. And footage from the neighbor across from the Wong house, capturing how the parrot had died. All of it pointed to one person. When the apartment door was kicked open, Makoto was in the middle of trying on new clothes. Willow. His expression lit up with surprise, then froze completely within seconds. Why are you? Before he could finish, a barrage of questions came flying. That day you and George ended up in the hospital with allergic reactions. What did you put in the soup you gave the kitchen auntie? Willow's voice was low, almost emotionless. Makoto's face went pale. He was momentarily speechless. And this? She flung a photo at him. It was a toxicology report from the pet hospital. The parrot was poisoned. You did that too. Those thugs weren't just trying to scare him. You were trying to destroy George. As she said it, Willow lunged forward and clamped down on his wrist. Her grip vicious, like she wanted to crush the bone. Silence fell over the room. Makoto stammered, panic written all over him. It's not what you think. You've got it all wrong. He kept insisting he hadn't done any of it, but the evidence was all there. There was no denying it. You're despicable. If it weren't for you, George wouldn't have left me. Willow's rage boiled over, her sanity unraveling bit by bit. The man who ruined everything stood right in front of her. How could she not hate him? Makoto had to use all his strength to break free from her grip. Panting heavily as he backed away, he realized there was no use pretending anymore. He gave up the act. Yeah, fine. I wanted those thugs to cripple him, then send you the video, just to show you what a loser he was. Smack. A resounding slap echoed through the room. A red mark bloomed on his face. Willow's hand was shaking, not from the slap, but from the image now burned into her mind. George, all alone, facing those monsters. Why didn't I look into it more that day? How scared and helpless George must have been. Take your things and get out of a city before tonight. She turned and walked toward the door, her voice cold and detached. She didn't want to see him ever again. Makoto didn't deserve to stay here. The moment those words landed, Makoto snapped out of his daze and lunged forward, clinging to her leg. You can't do this to me. You love me, don't you? You even donated your bone marrow for me. We're meant to be together. She had treated him so well before. As for what he did to George, he'd only wanted to scare him off. After all, George was the one clinging to Willow and refusing to let go. Willow let out a cold laugh and yanked her leg free. Bone marrow? I must have been insane to donate bone marrow to you. Her voice was filled with regret and disgust. Sunlight streamed in through the floor-to-ceiling windows as Makoto collapsed to the floor. The door shut behind her, sealing off his screams. She pulled out her phone and dialed the Hong Kong branch office. Prep the helicopter. I'm leaving. Now. Chapter 15. Willow arrived in Hong Kong shortly after. She found the Wong family residence and waited at the gate for 7 days straight. Still, the person she wanted to see never appeared. Even now, she stood outside the gated mid-levels villa, still waiting. The sky had started to drizzle gently. When the security guard came to ask her to leave for the third time, she handed him a wad of cash. Just 10 more minutes, please. A Bentley slowly approached, headlights cutting through the misty rain. Willow turned her head toward the sound. As the window rolled down, she saw George in the driver's seat. George. She stumbled forward, already soaked from the rain. The Bentley screeched to a halt. I hit the brakes immediately. Seeing Willow appear so suddenly, I felt no urge to exchange pleasantries. You've lost your mind, I snapped, rolling down the window. What if she'd gotten herself hurt rushing over like that? But Willow didn't even think about that. Her eyes were fixed, locked, on my hand, which was tightly clasped in Anna's. You too. Her voice caught in her throat. She couldn't finish. I stepped out of the car. My gaze met hers, calm, unwavering. Anna started to follow, but I stopped her with a slight shake of my head. I opened a clear umbrella and stood a couple of meters away from Willow, close enough to be civil, but distant enough to draw the line. Do you need something? My tone was flat, without warmth. Suddenly, Willow grabbed my wrist, gripping tightly, unwilling to let go. She had so much to say. She wanted to apologize, to ask for forgiveness. These past few days, waiting here, she had finally understood. George hadn't left because of a tantrum. He had left because he was truly disappointed in her. But the moment she saw him holding another woman's hand, her reason crumbled. It's because of her, isn't it? You left me, ran away from the wedding, just for her. Willow's eyes were red. Even she didn't notice the trace of hurt in her voice. Different setting, same people, but this time, the one falling apart was no longer George. I yanked my hand back. Our wedding ended the moment you donated your bone marrow to Makoto, I said coldly. Before she could respond, I continued. You said you were rescheduling the wedding, but I never agreed. Whatever plans you made after that, that was on you. My words were calm, deliberate, just stating facts. No, it's not like that. I love you. I've always loved you. I never wanted to cancel the wedding. Willow was panicked, disheveled, her voice hoarse. You think this is love? You're joking. I let out a cold scoff. When Makoto drugged me, where were you? When Buddy was poisoned, where were you? When I was cornered in an alley by thugs, where were you? Each incident was real. I wasn't reopening wounds, I was reminding her. Stop wasting time. Stop pretending we could go back. I've found out everything. Willow's eyes were bloodshot. It was Makoto, he did it all. He'll pay for it. She had come with the truth, ready to apologize. Back then, there hadn't been enough evidence for George's legal team to press charges. She had found better lawyers, stronger support. Makoto would be held accountable. She'd make it up to George, but that wasn't enough. So what? I asked. Just because she uncovered the truth, did that mean I was supposed to forget everything I'd been through? No. What happened, happened. No apology could undo it. Willow, a late apology isn't justice, it's redemption. I had no obligation to stand there and witness her redemption. That was the last thing I said to her. Then I turned and got back into the car, never looking at her again. The Bentley rolled through the gates. They closed firmly behind me. Willow stood in the rain, like a stray cat left out in the cold. Chapter 16. The twilight in Hong Kong was beautiful, the sky tinged with a soft orange hue. I chose to meet at the observation restaurant on Victoria Peak, perfect for a proper conversation. Willow arrived early. She was sitting by the window, quietly gazing outside. Have you been waiting long? Only then did a gentle, clear voice slowly ring in her ears. I didn't try to avoid her, nor did I bring any extra emotion. I faced her openly and calmly. No, Willow replied. I sat down and studied her for a moment. Having not seen her in a while, I realized she'd lost a lot of weight. She looked noticeably worn out. I said nothing and gestured to the waiter. When ordering, I casually asked for 2 cups of black tea, low sugar, the flavor Willow used to like. That small detail made her heart tighten suddenly. But she froze at the next sentence. My girlfriend recommended the desserts here. Want to try them? She didn't respond. I didn't mind and got straight to the point. Stop waiting for me outside my company. Let's settle everything here today. No more dragging it out. No more messy entanglements. I had thought things were over back in City A. Didn't expect her to follow me all the way to Hong Kong. The shareholder and equity documents you had someone deliver. I sent them back. I don't need them. I truly didn't. Even what my mom gave me is more than I can spend. Your recent behavior has seriously disrupted my life. Please respect yourself. I poured everything I wanted to say out at once. Willow stayed silent, just looked up at me. Let's part ways peacefully. I believe I never wronged you. I took a sip of black tea. My composed manner gave me an air of calm. The environment really can change a person. I had completely moved on. I didn't want the past, people or events, to disturb me anymore. Willow's fingers trembled uncontrollably. Her lips moved only after a long while. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I sincerely apologize. If there's anything I can do to make up for it, name it. I'll do everything. Just come back with me. I looked at her for a few seconds, then shook my head. I've met Anna's parents. My mom really likes her. The unspoken message. There's no more chance for us. I know what happened with Makoto hurt you deeply, she said, voice hoarse, speaking with quiet intensity. I've kicked him out of City A. He won't get in our way again. There would be no more obstacles between them. Willow, I interrupted her. It was the first time I'd called her name since things fell apart. Don't you understand? I never wanted any of this. I kept speaking. What happened in the past, those are just facts now. Trying to go back means nothing. She suddenly grabbed my hand on the table, touching my cool fingertips. I can wait 1 year, 3 years, until the wounds healed, until I was ready to accept her again, no matter how long it took. And then what? I gently pulled my hand away, my expression flat. Wait until I change my mind, just to go back to being your backup plan. Chapter 17. That sentence was like a dull knife, cutting open her heart bit by bit. That rhetorical question was, without a doubt, the clearest answer. In my heart, trust in her had long since vanished. I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. I wouldn't. I would never treat you like that. Willow suddenly realized, I wouldn't even spare her my hatred anymore. Words were too hollow, spoken aloud. They sounded weightless. Do you really think I still believe anything you say? I didn't answer, just asked back, whether I believed her or not. The rift between us wasn't something that could be patched up with a single promise. I know you don't believe me, but I'm being sincere. Sincerity, sometimes it's the purest thing in the world. And sometimes it's the most powerless. When you love someone, sincerity is priceless. When you don't, it's just another blade twisted into the other person. Actions speak louder than words. If the feelings are gone, I won't force it. It's always been that way. Who would believe in so-called rare sincerity again and again? The waiter brought over the soufflé. dusted with powdered sugar. I took a spoonful. The cream melted softly on my lips. Willow didn't touch her utensils. When cream clung to the corner of my mouth, she instinctively reached to hand me a napkin, but then she stopped. She suddenly remembered. She no longer had the right to do that. Loving him, being by his side, those were someone else's rights now. Even the small gesture, wiping cream off his lips, belonged to someone else, and maybe, so did much, much more. They would kiss, they would live together, they might even get married, have children of their own, and her. She had nothing. The thought clawed at her chest. Jealousy rising like a beast with its mouth wide open, ready to devour her whole. Willow lowered her gaze, trying hard to hold herself together. George, please, give me another chance. I'll love you with all my heart. I'll transfer all my Lou Group shares to you. I'll give you everything I have. Her voice choked. And then, she added, please, I'm begging you. That plea was crushed into the dirt. The wind lifted my collar, revealing a faint red kiss mark on my neck. Willow looked away abruptly, her chest tight with emotion. How did it come to this? She could hardly breathe. No, let's both move on. Even if I forgave you, one day you'd remember I dated someone after our breakup. And it would eat away at you. You'd resent me, maybe even hate me. Why force it? I laid out the logic calmly, leaving no room for rebuttal. Keep looking back, and fate will start to take away your right to be happy. When you're stuck in the mud of the past and can't climb out, regret comes for everyone. Humans are endlessly greedy, never satisfied. Willow tried to force a smile, but her lips were stiff. Do you love her? She remembers I don't eat cilantro. My voice was soft, but I couldn't hide the smile tugging at my lips. She'll come pick me up in the pouring rain. She remembers everything I like. There are no other men around her. She only loves me. Willow's breath caught in her throat. All the things she'd never done, and those were exactly the ways George wanted to be loved, but she had never understood him. This is the end. I wish you happiness. I said my final words and stood up to leave. At least, let me take you home. Her voice was hoarse. No need. Anna's waiting downstairs. I turned and walked away. From where she sat, Willow could just barely see Anna waiting outside. She watched as I jogged toward her, and hugged her tightly. Then we looked at each other, and smiled. It was the kind of smile Willow hadn't seen on my face in a long time. Pure, cloudless happiness. Turns out, some missed chances can't be taken back, even if you chase them to the ends of the earth. Chapter 18. City A. The Lou family villa. From the moment Willow Lou received the call until now, she still felt like she was in a daze. The men she had hated for over 20 years had just passed away, and she still couldn't believe it. She rushed back from Hong Kong to City A overnight to face the truth. No one expected him to die of a cerebral hemorrhage. Pick a date for the cremation. Her uncle patted her shoulder and sighed silently. Willow had grown up in the Wong household. All she remembered was her mother dying with her eyes wide open. She had little affection for this father. And in fact, hatred outweighed blood ties. But blood, it's not something that can simply be erased, no matter what. She still carried the name Lou. All right, keep it simple. Everything went smoothly. In the end, all returned to dust. After the funeral, Willow felt completely drained, as if there was nothing left in this world for her to lose. No lover, no so-called family. All she had left was an empty shell. For a moment, she felt like she could no longer feel love or hate. Each day, she came home from work to a cold, silent house, trying to drown herself in work, to use external distractions to fill the emptiness inside, just to feel a little better. But in the middle of the night, she'd still dream of the past, fragments of George smiling at her, the happy moments when they held each other, in the blink of an eye. It was all in the past. Everything around her screamed one thing: the world had changed. They were no longer who they used to be. Willow, being trapped in the past won't do you any good. Either try again or start a new life. The way you are now, it worries your uncle. That day, her uncle entered the study, handing her a glass of water. Looking at her slumped figure, Martin let out a deep sigh. Was it really worth destroying herself for someone else? Uncle, you don't understand. She understood the logic, but regret and remorse always tangled around her like vines. She couldn't shake them off. Feelings can't be controlled. They come and go as they please. In the end, only a lingering bitterness takes over the mind and body. Impossible to escape. I want to forget George too, but I can't. So I drown myself in work, turn myself into this mess. At that, Willow lowered her head. If you can't forget, then fight to get him back. Martin patted her shoulder. Anything was better than staying in this state. After his advice, he left the study, and once again, she was alone. She counted the years she'd spent with George, over a decade. She refused to believe George could let go of her so quickly. Push back all my work for the next month. Book me a ticket to Hong Kong. Willow called her assistant. after quickly going over the business arrangements. She cleared her schedule. She couldn't go on like this. She needed to try one more time. Hong Kong, the Wong family residence. The living room was packed with people. On the coffee table sat a laptop. Its screen showing the front page of the Hong Kong Daily's entertainment section. The headline read, "Young master of the Wong family caught as the other men. Shameless homewrecker exposed." Auntie, I already have people investigating who started this rumor. Anna clung to my arm, analyzing the situation rationally. There was no need to explain. She believed me unconditionally. If I find out who started this, I'll kill them. My mom stood with hands on hips, fuming. How dare someone slander her precious son? They must have a death wish. Don't be mad. It's fake news. I'm not letting this ruin my mood. I smiled slightly. I didn't care about this sudden scandal. Maybe I had been through too many bad things. False accusations no longer scared me. We care. My mom and Anna spoke in perfect unison. They cared, because they loved me. They wouldn't allow anyone to throw mud at me. It hurt them to see me slandered. "Mr. Wong, we found out who it was." The phone rang. And the assistant's first words were exactly that. When I heard the name of the person who spread the rumor, my brows furrowed slightly. Chapter 19. It was someone named Makoto who sold fake news to the media. After all this time, I never expected to hear that name again, especially under these circumstances. Makoto again. This person clings to me like a nightmare, annoying and disgusting. But unlike before, I didn't feel the same intense anger and grief. Instead, it felt like something from a past life. Him again. Does he think the Wong family has no one to stand up for us? My mother snorted coldly. She might not dare touch Willow, but does that mean she can't deal with Makoto? In my past life, Makoto only lived well because he relied on Willow. But now everything has changed. If he dares to stir up trouble again, he better be ready to face the consequences. The Wong family is no pushover. George, leave it alone. Let mom handle it. Just rest easy. As soon as she finished speaking, the doorbell rang. The butler hurried over, looking troubled. He seemed at a loss for words. Since Anna was present, he didn't say the visitor's name right away, especially because the person didn't come alone. "What is it? Who's at the door?" my mother asked suspiciously. Who could it be to make the butler look like that? It's Miss Liu. And she brought Makoto, tied up. They came together. He stammered the whole sentence. She tied up Makoto and brought him here. Even my mother was caught off guard. I couldn't make sense of it either. Why did they come? I thought I made myself perfectly clear last time. It didn't seem like Willow's style to come pestering again. "Sorry to bother you. I came to deliver someone for punishment." The front door slowly opened. A woman in a white trench coat stepped inside. Willow's face was as striking as ever, but Makoto looked completely disheveled. What the hell was going on? Everyone inside looked at each other in astonishment. Makoto's mouth was sealed with duct tape. His hands were tied behind his back with thick rope, and a bodyguard stood nearby to make sure he didn't try to run. The scene was both absurd and shocking. We had just confirmed that Makoto was behind the fake news, and now he was delivered right to our door. The fake report in the news was his doing. I've already had it taken down and demanded a formal apology from the media, and I brought the one responsible with me. Swift and effective. Willow's face didn't show any smugness. She looked calm and straightforward. "I'm sorry. I was partly to blame too. If it weren't for me, Makoto wouldn't have acted so extremely." She bowed slightly, her tone serious. So she came to show where she stands. A noble person is judged by their actions, not their motives. Regardless of her intentions, her actions clearly sided with us. Now Makoto is yours to deal with. I'm handing him over. Even though she said, "handing him over to you," her eyes were looking at me. Everyone present knew exactly who she was really doing this for. I quietly held Anna's hand and leaned a little closer to her. It was obvious who was close and who wasn't. "Thank you, but I'll pursue legal action. Taking matters into our own hands would be illegal. We can't accept him. For slander and defamation, the law will serve justice. There wasn't enough evidence for when he hired thugs to attack me before, but this time, the facts were undeniable. Perfect chance to settle both old and new scores. I refused to stoop to the level of people like him. It would dirty my hands and be a mockery of the law. Let him go. Let the court summon him," I said calmly. After speaking, I took 2 steps back. Willow gave the bodyguard a look, signaling him to release Makoto, but the moment the tape was ripped from Makoto's mouth, he shouted, you all deserve to die." He shoved the bodyguard and tried to lunge at Willow. The bodyguard instantly restrained him. "Don't move. Behave yourself." He was quickly pinned again, Makoto's face full of resentment. "George, you damn bastard. What else can you do besides seduce women? I should have killed you when I had the chance. Let me go. I'll kill all of you." He spewed nothing but filth. His eyes bulged, glaring at me with unhinged hatred. His words were incoherent. He didn't look mentally stable. "Shut up." "Tape his mouth again," Willow snapped. Throw him out before he acts like a rabid dog and bites someone. Chapter 20. Willow didn't stay long, she left quickly, as if she couldn't bear to remain another second. No matter how you looked at it, she seemed like an outsider. There was no longer a place for her in the Wang family. As she stepped out of the courtyard, the calm look on her face darkened. She cast a cold, venomous glance at the still struggling Makoto and slowly walked toward him. George is kind and won't stoop to your level, but I'm not nearly so forgiving. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear. You followed me all the way to Hong Kong just to spread lies and stir up trouble. I was already being merciful when I kicked you out of a city, and yet you still dared to hurt George. She raised her hand and ruthlessly pinched Makoto's face. She held his head in place, her eyes locking with his. One pair was icy cold, the other, wild and deranged. Blade, get a few men and give him a proper beating before handing him over to the authorities. Especially that mouth, don't hold back. He likes running his mouth so much. Then better to shut it for good. The bodyguard shoved Makoto into a car, which sped off immediately. Willow walked slowly along the path, the restlessness in her heart gradually dissipating. She thought, maybe she still couldn't stop herself from trying one last time. After all, how could she just give up so easily? The weather in Hong Kong was indeed humid, and it seemed like her heart was also shrouded in a fine mist. When it turned cold, that mist would freeze into needles that pierced her deeply. At first, it felt like pure torment, but maybe that pain reminded her she was still alive. Alive like a real human being. The next day, a news report was published. Wang family heir sends legal notice to irresponsible media. Rumors are not to be trusted. Below the report was another announcement. At the beginning of next month, the young master of the Wang family will be engaged to the youngest daughter of the Su family. Multiple media outlets quickly picked up the story. Originally, the engagement was supposed to be announced later, but given the circumstances, both families agreed to release the news now. It was a powerful, unspoken rebuttal to the rumors. If the Su family believed in their future son-in-law's character, what else could outsiders say? You've finally given me a proper title. Darling, my dear fiancé. Anna held onto my arm, leaning against my chest. As she spoke, her voice gently vibrated against my chest. Her warm breath mingled with mine. Even with us so close together, it didn't feel overwhelming at all. If there was ever a definition for inseparable, this was it. Because of love, even doing the most ordinary things together never felt boring. Instead, it felt joyful, and we never grew tired of it. Willow probably saw the engagement news too. She'd been trying to find opportunities to meet me in the past few days, but I had deliberately avoided her, whether consciously or unconsciously. There was no reason for us to meet again. If you don't make a clean break, it only leads to chaos. That was something I understood well. On the day of the engagement party, many familiar faces showed up. I wore a white suit, elegant and striking. The photographers kept snapping away. The venue was tastefully decorated, simple yet grand, making others envious. Anna suddenly appeared out of nowhere. She was holding a plate of my favorite peach blossom pastries. The ceremony was still half an hour away. Honey, have a few bites to fill your stomach. The moment I saw her, I couldn't help but smile, my eyes curved. And for a second, I felt truly dazzled by her. This wonderful girl was about to officially become my fiancé. Okay, our ceremony was about to begin, and our future was bound to be happy. But just when everything seemed perfect, someone always had to show up and ruin the moment. Chapter 21. Young Master. Outside. Someone's asking to see you. The butler knocked and entered the dressing room, leaning in to whisper beside me. He wasn't deliberately trying to hide it. His voice was at a normal volume. Anyone nearby could catch the general idea. Tell her I'm not going to see her. There's plenty of security on site today. I don't want a public confrontation. She should know better. I sighed. I said it loud enough for others to hear. There was no need to sneak around when it came to Anna and me. Are you really not going to see her? Anna turned her face away slightly, asking the question deliberately. Even though she was certain about how I felt, no one could completely ignore a past lover like Willow. Do you want me to go? I didn't answer, just asked in return. Such a contradictory little woman. If I did go see her, she'd be upset. I don't want you to. Anna threw her arms around me. People are selfish by nature. Who would want their lover to meet with someone still hung up on them? Especially not on the day of their engagement. Of course I won't see her. I already made things crystal clear with her. Outside the estate, a crowd had gathered. Willow stood beneath a parasol tree across the street, staring toward the inside without blinking. When the ceremony began, she watched through the floor-to-ceiling window as George, dressed in ceremonial attire, led Anna through the crowd, toasting guests. The two stood side by side, looking like a perfect match. Cheers and applause could be heard faintly. They look so good together. I'm so jealous. Their story is just like something out of a drama. So sweet. Two young women chattered excitedly nearby. It was the kind of engagement George had always wanted. How perfect. thinking that made her eyes well up. She fought hard not to blink, afraid that her tears would fall. It was a joyful day, no tears allowed. Watching him get engaged to someone else felt like being cut open while still alive, but there was nothing she could do. So this was what it felt like to miss out on true love. Willow sat quietly in a cafe across from the Peninsula Hotel. It was the 7th day. Ever since George's engagement, she came to this cafe every day, ordering her favorite iced lemon tea, though she never touched it. Outside the window, George's white Bentley slowly passed by. Today, he wore a light blue shirt, his usual casual style. Willow's eyes followed the car's taillights until they vanished around the corner. "Miss, would you like a refill?" the waiter asked softly. She shook her head and pulled out her phone. On the screen was a photo she had secretly taken yesterday. George and Anna stood smiling at each other outside a jewelry store. The sapphire ring on his ring finger suited him perfectly. They looked happy. "Just one more week," she told herself silently. "Once he's completely settled, I'll go back to a city." The next afternoon, the storm came suddenly, wild and violent. Willow's car was parked not far from the Wang Group headquarters. She watched as raindrops the size of beans slammed against her window. She shouldn't have come here, but something uncontrollable drew her. Just knowing that George was inside, that he was close, gave her a strange sense of peace and belonging. A car drove out of the underground garage. Almost instinctively, she followed it. She didn't even know why. Maybe just to catch one last glimpse of George. But she hadn't gone far when she heard the piercing sound of brakes up ahead. Her heart clenched. She stepped on the gas. George's car was about to be hit by an out-of-control truck. She floored it, trying to swerve into the path and take the impact for him. But it all happened too fast. By the time she reacted, it was too late. A wave of dizziness washed over her. The airbag deployed. She could feel warm liquid trickling from her forehead. Not just her, George's car had been hit and pushed sideways. "George!" Willow jumped out into the rain. Her shirt instantly soaked through. She rushed to the front of the car. Through the fogged-up window, she saw George clutching his forehead, blood seeping through his fingers. "Are you okay? Can you hear me?" She pounded on the window, panic all over her face. George slowly turned his head, his eyes settling on her face. He looked dazed. His lips moved, but no sound came out. Chapter 22. Willow clutched the car door handle tightly, her knuckles turning white. Every movement made the dizziness in her head worse. She didn't dare let go, using the last of her strength to shout George's name. "George? George, are you okay?" She pounded on the window again and again. Willow wanted to smash the glass open but was afraid the shards might hurt him. It had been over 10 minutes since she called the ambulance, and she was out of options. Dizziness, anxiety, and fear completely overwhelmed her. At this moment, all she could do was wait. Drip, drip, blood trickled from Willow's face, and her awareness began to fade. Finally, the sound of sirens came from the distance. She took a step back and watched the paramedics lift George onto a stretcher. His eyelashes fluttered slightly just before losing consciousness. It seemed like he glanced at her. Willow stood in the rain, drenched from head to toe. The family members also injured. "Get her in the ambulance now." A nurse pulled her into the vehicle. Only when the gash on her forehead was carefully tended to did she truly register where she was. Mistaken as George's family, she didn't even care about the pain anymore. At least George was safe. This time, she had finally done something for him. On the ambulance, the nurse placed an oxygen mask over George's face. He lifted his arm slightly, fingers trembling. Willow leaned closer to hear what he was saying. She only caught, "Anna, Anna," again and again. He called out another woman's name. Then everything went black for her. When she woke up, the smell of disinfectant filled her nostrils. Outside, it was already dusk. She looked around. The room was empty. Moments later, she heard the door open. "You're awake. Are you feeling okay anywhere?" A nurse entered, pushing a cart, and gently asked her, "The accident gave you a mild concussion and a cracked rib," the nurse explained as she checked Willow's vitals. Willow didn't care about her own injuries. She tried to sit up. "The men who came in with me, George has to be okay. He woke up this morning. His injuries are lighter than yours," the nurse said while taking notes. She added softly, "His fiancée is with him now." "You're really a brave person to help like that." Those words stung. Anna was the fiancée, and she, at best, just a kind-hearted stranger. How painfully ironic. After the nurse left with a few care instructions Willow barely heard, she forced herself out of bed. Leaning against the wall, she shuffled slowly to the door of the next room. There, she saw George sitting up in bed, bandages on his temple. Anna sat by his side, gently feeding him spoonfuls of porridge. "Is it too hot?" "The doctor said you need to eat something light," Anna said, blowing on the spoon. George shook his head. He looked okay, just a bit pale. "I don't want porridge. I want an apple." Anna immediately put down the bowl, picked up a fruit knife, and started peeling. She carefully sliced the apple and fed him small pieces. Their eyes never left each other. The intimacy between them left no room for anyone else. Willow didn't even have the courage to walk in and say hello. So this is what heartbreak really feels like, watching the one you love look at someone else like you don't exist. She remembered how she once left George behind to rush Makoto to the doctor when he had an allergic reaction. Was this what George had felt back then? And worse, she had even donated bone marrow for Makoto, never stopping to consider how George might feel. Anna, I love you. The words were soft, but clear enough for Willow to hear. Her lips pressed into a tight line as if she were forcing herself to hold something in. It was hard to describe. Time had passed. Roles had shifted. And now, she finally understood what George must have felt back then. To be treated the way you once treated someone else. That's the cruelest revenge life can offer. Willow curled up on a bench in the hallway, trembling all over. See, retribution always arrives with painful precision. Chapter 23. After half a month in the hospital, Willow was finally about to be discharged. Her injuries had mostly healed. She never went to see George again. Every time she looked at him, her heart ached. Sometimes, not disturbing someone was the last dignity you could offer. Most of the time, she stayed by herself. Even just watching the scenery felt peaceful. Her time off wasn't long, and the more she thought about things, the more her mind became tangled, spinning round and round until everything turned into chaos. It was mentally exhausting. Willow sat on her hospital bed, replying to emails on her laptop. When she heard the door handle turn, she looked up. The moment she saw who it was, her fingers froze midair. I stood at the doorway, our eyes meeting. I was holding a bouquet of tulips in my arms. Are you feeling better? I walked in, my voice soft. I approached her bedside and placed the bouquet on the nightstand. Willow instinctively gripped the bedsheet, trying to make herself relax. I'm much better now. What brings you here? So George still thought about her. I continued. Thank you for saving me. I was only here to express my gratitude. That calm and distant tone made Willow's eyes sting with heat. The doctor said if it had been 5 minutes later, the consequences would have been much worse. The situation had been critical. Looking back now, I remembered it clearly. It was Willow's car that appeared and blocked most of the impact. Emotionally and morally, I owed her a visit. I asked my assistant to compile a list of the Liu family's assets in Hong Kong. I hope it's useful to you. I took a folder from my bag and handed it to her. It was a carefully organized document, clearly. A lot of effort had gone into it. The offshore funds your father moved years ago, they're marked on page 3. I didn't know how to repay this kind of life-saving favor. All I could do was offer what help I could. Doing a little for her was the least I could do in return. There's no need for this kind of formality between us, she said, her voice choking up. She didn't take the folder. If we could do it all over again, would things be different? Even though the question was pointless, she still wanted to ask. If she had realized her feelings earlier, would everything have turned out differently? Willow's eyes were slightly red as she quietly looked at me. She wanted to hear the truth. Our ending is already different now, I said as I lowered my gaze. I sat on the chair beside her hospital bed, choosing my words carefully. My mother had reminded me of what happened in our past life. I hadn't forgotten. Boiling water poured on her face. A tragic death. If I told people that now, would anyone even believe me? Willow didn't quite understand. She looked at me, confused. What do you mean it's already a different ending? What was the original one like? I hesitated for several minutes before finally telling her what my mother had shared. A past life, twisted fate. As I retold it, it felt like I was describing someone else's story. Just take it as a story. I know it sounds surreal, I said softly. When I finished, Willow's face turned pale. She didn't blink, not even once. Strangely, she believed me, without reason, without doubt. So many things had happened by now. It was hard to say what caused what, or who was bearing the consequences. This tug of war between two people left both scarred. Willow's voice was hoarse. She couldn't even finish the sentence. The words can't have a happy ending, can we? Never made it past her lips, but I understood. I paused, then replied gently. It's all in the past now. We both need to move forward. Take care of yourself, and it's best if you don't come to Hong Kong again. I stood up, walked to the door, and left behind those final words. As the door clicked shut, Willow slowly closed her eyes. Maybe this really was the final ending. When the nurse came in to change her bandage, she found the patient still sitting in the exact same position. The bouquet of tulips lay on the nightstand, with dewdrops clinging to the petals. Just about to fall. Chapter 24. Time flew by, and soon, my wedding with Anna arrived right on schedule. It was also the day Willow was due to return to a city. Before leaving, she sent me a message. Congratulations on your marriage. I wish you all the best. It was a sincere and heartfelt blessing. She had come all this way, walked in circles, and still ended up alone. With a bitter smile, Willow turned off her phone and headed for the airport. Just before takeoff, she received a reply. Thank you, I hope the same for you. And with that, a silent full stop was placed between us. 3 days later, the weather was clear and bright, the wedding chapel was beautifully decorated, and guests filled the space with lively chatter. I stood before the full-length mirror in the lounge, dazed for a moment. Getting married felt so surreal. The suit elevated the men, but the men outshone the suit. Mr. Wang, you look so handsome today, the makeup artist complimented. Thank you, I replied with a smile. Everything had gone smoothly. Now, we were just waiting for the ceremony to begin. Anna stood at the entrance, waiting for me to walk toward her. From start to finish, the smiles on our faces never faded. The church pews were lined with champagne-colored roses, and the guests whispered softly among themselves, "Will the bride and groom please enter?" The officiant's voice rang out, and the organ began to play the wedding march. Anna stepped onto the red carpet and walked toward me. Each step was filled with joy. I turned at the altar and solemnly reached out my hand to her. Our wedding skipped the usual complicated customs. We added touches of our own. After the formal ceremony, everyone was invited to dance. The breeze lifted our hems, and the space filled with movement. "We're married," I shouted joyfully to the guests, my smile practically etched onto my face. In the end, our wedding was full of laughter and blessings. But elsewhere, someone couldn't bring herself to smile. The weather in a city was the opposite of Hong Kong. Long, heavy rains. It had just finished pouring. Willow stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Lu Corporation building, staring silently at the raindrops trickling down the glass. On her desk lay a financial report from the Hong Kong branch. At the bottom was a newspaper clipping taped to the page. Heiress Anna's grand wedding, $1,000,000 jade jewelry stuns the crowd. In the photo, George smiled brightly, holding Anna as they looked lovingly into the camera. They looked happy. "Miss Lu, you have a meeting in 15 minutes, her secretary gently reminded her, peeking through the door. "Postpone it. Start in an hour." She spoke in a detached voice, calmly adjusting her schedule, but inside, she felt completely empty. She turned her head, her fingers unconsciously rubbing the design draft in her drawer. It was the initial sketch of a feather necklace, one that had been crumpled and smoothed out countless times. Just a few days ago, Willow finally finished the piece in her jewelry studio. She had planned this design for a long time. Feathers are light and go unnoticed when you have them, but once lost, they seem to brush against you constantly, impossible to forget, impossible to let go. Just like her love story with George, her phone buzzed. A message from the private investigator: "The gift has been delivered." Attached was a photo. George was looking down, carefully examining the necklace. From behind, Anna wrapped her arms around his waist, resting her chin on his shoulder affectionately. Willow turned off her screen, and let out a long, deep breath. At 3 a.m., the night was dead silent. She woke up suddenly in bed. Her forehead was drenched in cold sweat, her chest rising and falling in uneven breaths. She slowly adjusted her breathing. Her trembling hands began to calm. The room was quiet. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner filled the space. The water in the glass beside her bed had gone completely cold. She had no choice but to get up. The dream had been so beautiful, and so unreal. In it, George wore a casual shirt, standing in the kitchen making coffee. That image of him turning around and smiling at her was etched into her memory, so warm, so gentle. They hadn't separated. Everything was just like in the beginning, but it wasn't real. It was just a dream. George. George. Willow covered her face, murmuring his name over and over again. The pain and grief, she could only endure them alone. The long night wasn't over. Maybe today was a beginning, or maybe an end. Who could say? Willow only knew that. When she returned to her study and saw the screen still paused on the Hong Kong wedding news, her heart had gone completely numb, as if it had forgotten how to beat. She thought, outside of a dream, I may never see George again. Chapter 25. 5 years later, in the golden autumn, the weather in a city turned cold quickly. It was barely autumn, and people were already wearing overcoats. Willow was in town for work, and coincidentally, the hotel she was staying at had a hot spring. She had just finished a grueling multinational merger meeting, and her thoughts hadn't quite settled. As she headed toward the hot spring area, she heard the clear laughter of a child from nearby. "Daddy, there are goldfish here." The little girl's voice was crisp like wind chimes, full of innocence. Willow turned her head instinctively. She saw George bending down to roll up the sleeves of a 4 or 5-year-old child, a gentle smile on his face. He still liked wearing plain-colored shirts, they suited his temperament well. "Slow down, you little rascal." He patted his daughter's back, his tone tender to the extreme. "They must be here on vacation." Willow's fingers clenched tightly, her knuckles pale. The little girl was wearing a pale yellow bathrobe, bouncing her way toward the hot spring pool. Her short legs didn't run very fast, wobbling all the way there. 2 fluffy pigtails on her head bobbed up and down as she moved, adorable beyond words. Willow froze. The little girl's eyes were far too familiar, a perfect miniature of George. In the blink of an eye, their figures disappeared from view, and then, a soft, milky voice piped up right next to her. "Auntie, your drink spilled." Only then did Willow notice the little girl squatting in front of her, chubby finger pointing at the wine stain on her clothes. Her voice was crisp and sweet, impossible to dislike. The child must have thought it was juice. "Thank you for telling me." Her voice was hoarse as she moved the glass farther away. "Auntie, did you also get scolded by your mommy and daddy for failing a test?" The little girl plopped down next to her, acting like they were old friends. Her round little face scrunched into a pout. With soft hands, she pulled a milk candy from her pocket. "Daddy says eating something sweet makes sadness go away." She held the candy out to Willow. When Willow accepted it, her fingers brushed the child's warm hand. Her heart tightened with an aching sorrow. "My name is Geo Argana. What's yours?" "Auntie, Geo Argana." It sounded like a blend of George and Anna. This child was the product of their love. The little girl kicked her legs cheerfully. Without waiting for Willow to answer, she added slowly, "Daddy said that with my name, people will know how much he and mommy love each other." Willow was momentarily speechless. The mist from the hot spring rose around them, stinging her eyes. "My last name is Lou. You can call me Auntie Lou." Her voice came out raspy. Suddenly, the little girl leaned in, one milk-scented hand reaching up to touch Willow's face. "Auntie, are you crying?" Only then did Willow realize. Tears were already slipping down her cheeks. "Anita." George rushed over, crouching down, his face full of concern as he scolded the little girl for running off. Anna followed behind at a steady pace, holding her daughter's coat in one hand. The little girl ran over, giggling, and threw herself into George's arms. The moment their foreheads touched, father and daughter looked incredibly happy. "Sorry, she's a bit energetic. I hope she didn't bother you." George smiled at Willow politely, almost apologetically. Willow shook her head. They didn't say anything more. Then he left, holding his daughter's hand. Geo Argana stood on tiptoe, showing her parents a maple leaf she held in her palm. Anna held her with one arm, while George smiled and gently brushed a fallen petal from his wife's shoulder, his movements natural and intimate. Mist from the hot spring drifted through the corridor. Willow turned away and walked alone toward the hotel. After all these years, she was the only one still stuck in the same place. A few more years passed. Willow's funeral was held in a city, during the season of snow. Perhaps due to complications from donating bone marrow, her health had gradually declined over the years. She hadn't taken proper care of herself either. At just 36, she quietly departed from this world. When I received the obituary, I was braiding my daughter's hair. Geo Argana was very well behaved. She sat quietly, letting me style her hair, not squirming or fidgeting. Anna and I made a trip back to a city. I stood alone in front of the grave, while Anna waited a short distance away, looking at the woman I had once been entangled with for over 20 years, now reduced to a cold, unfeeling photo on a headstone. I couldn't help but feel a wave of emotion. Life is unpredictable. You never know what comes first, tomorrow or the unexpected. Willow, may you rest in peace. In this moment, all past grievances dissolved. I hope in the next life, we won't meet again. After a simple farewell, I took Anna's hand and walked away. For the rest of my life, I never set foot in a city again. The picturesque beauty of Hong Kong was enough to hold me until the very end. The moon hung high in the sky, shining down upon the unfinished verses of this world, and I would go on being happy.